We are currently conducting a sexual assault investigation. The Calgary Police Service is currently investigating a sexual assault involving a man who falsely identified himself as a driver of a ride-sharing company. In the early morning hours of Sunday, March 5th, 2017, a group of people were standing outside of a restaurant in the 300 block of 11th Avenue, Southwest, when a minivan pulled up. The driver stated he was a ride-share driver and asked if anyone needed a ride. One woman had made arrangements with a ride-sharing company and got into a van believing it was there for her. The man drove the woman to her home where he insisted on walking her to the door. The man then made unwanted verbal comments before inappropriately touching the woman multiple times. Eventually, the man ceased his behavior and returned to his vehicle. The victim then called the police. The suspect is described as a lighter-skinned man with a distinct accent in his early 30s, approximately 5'10" tall, with a medium build, dark eyes, and he was also clean-cut with no facial hair. He was wearing a black baseball hat at the time. The minivan is described as navy blue, between 2008 and 2010 Dodge Caravan, with cloth seats inside. Investigators have confirmed that the ride-sharing driver initially assigned to pick up the woman attended the location but left without his assigned passenger as she was not there at the requested pickup time. It is not yet known if the driver of the minivan was a legitimate driver for a ride-sharing company or merely posing as one. Anyone with information of the incident is asked to call the Calgary Police Service at 266-1234 or Crime Stoppers anonymously.
Can you confirm that it was Uber, the ride-sharing company?
There is no indication at this point that he was a legitimate ride-sharing driver.
What about the driver that was supposed to pick her up? Was that through Uber?
That was a legitimate ride-sharing company that was there to pick her up. But like I said, that person was not there when that rideshare attended to actually pick her up.
Right, but what we want to know is whether she mistook them for Uber.
So obviously the individual, the victim in this case, believed that it was in fact a rideshare that was there to pick her up.
Why are we lingering on the words rideshare and not identifying it as Lyft or Tapcar or Uber? Or
Well, there's a number of different companies. I think there's over 1,300 different drivers in Calgary. Can you let me answer the question? There's approximately 1,300 ride shares in Calgary that are registered with the city. So that's the type of ride-sharing company that obviously offers this type of service in this case.
So, sorry, your answer was that this company...
I'm sorry?
Dylan, we're going to take your question.
Yeah,
you said right off the top, like, that the man falsely identified himself as a driver for a rideshare company.
That's correct.
So he's not, you determined that he wasn't.
He was not, the person who picked her up was not a legitimate ride-sharing company in this case. So a legitimate ride-sharing company is not a consideration in this case.
What part of town did she drive her to?
I don't have that exact information, but it was approximately about a 25-minute drive from the original pickup location to the residence where this incident occurred.
Is there a way, obviously this was outside of an establishment, are you looking at CCTV to try and get the license plate? Would that be a way that you might be able to identify whether or not the van was legitimate?
We are using CCTV to try and identify the vehicle and or any additional information, and we're really asking for the public's help to assist us with that information as well.
Just as a follow-up to this question, so in the news release you say he falsely identified himself as a driver for a ride-sharing company, but later in the release you say it's not known if he is a legitimate driver for a ride-sharing company, so which is it?
Right, yeah, that's a good question. I think the information is obviously being investigated, but we don't have any information to suggest at all that this was a legitimate ride-sharing company. I'll just make that clear. We have no information to suggest at all that this is a legitimate ride-sharing company.
Is the victim, whatever ride-sharing company that she was with, have you reached out to that ride-sharing company to assist in the investigation since she had made arrangements with a company of some sort?
Right. So in this case, there was obviously some contact made with the ride-sharing company to determine whether or not the pickup had occurred or not, and we were able to determine that it did not occur, that there was not a pickup related to that original request for a ride share.
What exactly made this individual leave to break off this encounter?
So essentially at that point, you know, at the point at which this incident started to escalate, while she was being walked up to the residence, there was some conversation that occurred, and ultimately there was a decision made, obviously by the offender in this case, that it was best to leave under that circumstance.
Do you know if there's a way that, you know, for her to identify whether or not this person is legitimate? Is that something that needs to be looked at, perhaps?
I think that's a really important point, is that when you look at the tips, when you conduct any type of ride share, there are typically some things that people can do to look at to determine whether they're legitimate or not. And one of the things is when you request a ride share, you and in most of these ride share companies, they offer a photograph of the driver. So you actually get a photograph of the driver, you get a description of the vehicle that's there to pick you up. You also get the license plate of the vehicle, and they'll also have a sticker in the back window that says TNC, Transportation Network Company, as well in the window. So those are just ways that the victim, in this case, or sorry, any person using a ride share can determine whether or not they're a legitimate ride share or not. But it's, I think, so I just wanted to add one thing. It's really important that we don't blame the victim in this case. Obviously, she was there to get a ride, believing it was a legitimate ride. This was a predatorial act by an individual that thought they could take advantage of a situation.
How's she
heard about
doing? Like knowing that this predator knows where she lives?
Right, yeah. I mean, that would be really concerning, obviously, and that's something, you know, we work through to try and support her through that.
Have there been other complaints regarding ride-sharing companies and people who've driven for ride-sharing companies legitimately or posing as such that you know of that would make CPS?
I'm not aware of any circumstances at this point that are similar to this incident. This is the first one that I know of that we've dealt with.
I just wanted a clarification to the question asked earlier. So, has police reached out to the ride-sharing company that she is registered with and did make an attempt to make an arrangement? Is that part of the investigation to contact that company?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was this just a random incident that the guy pulled up that just happened to be where she was looking for a ride, or does this person somehow know that somebody's waiting there? Like,
You know, it's a good question because, you know, when individuals or any persons are now looking for rideshare, typically they'll be in a position out on the street or something for the pickup. So it's really difficult to determine at this time whether this person just pulled up randomly and it was a situation of opportunity, or that this person is even more predatorial in relation to that and is looking for those opportunities to pick somebody up. And I think that's where I would, you know, focus us back to those tips for individuals. If you are using rideshare, make sure that you know that the person who is coming to pick you up is in fact the person you're getting into the vehicle with. Really important piece.
are you looking to see if somehow maybe one of the companies has been hacked into and now this person is able to know where these places are that people are getting rides?
In this situation, there's no indication at all that this was even a legitimate rideshare that showed up. So I think that's not part of this concern at this point.
But I think what he's saying is there a way that like maybe somebody could access the information from those rideshare companies and then obtain that information and use it to become a predator in this situation?
I don't have any information to suggest that that is possible at this point in time.
In this case, it sounds like it happened in reverse order, but help me clarify if it's wrong. So he approached and made the offer, and then she then opened like an app and requested a vehicle? Was it because of that, instigated because of that?
No,
As a
that's
precaution? No.
no. So in this case, she had requested a ride from a
okay.
ride share,
Coincidentally.
happened to be
Gotcha.
standing out on the street with a number of other people, and this vehicle showed up. And I believe that in this case, she felt that that was the ride that was there for her.
Then that makes more sense.
Is there a particular reason why CPS isn't naming the ride-share company that she was registered with, just considering it's a question the public's going to ask?
Yeah, I think there's just a number of different ride shares that are available out there, and I think we don't really want to focus on any one of them specifically. There's obviously a number of different ride shares that are available to the public, so it's not, and in this case, it really, it wasn't even a legitimate rideshare that showed up to pick her up. So there was no specific rideshare that picked her up, like a legitimate rideshare that picked her up. We believe it wasn't even a legitimate rideshare that picked her up. Does that make sense? Do you understand what I'm saying?
I guess the question though is that, I mean, it just seems odd that you're not naming the company that she had an account with.
Right, but that company did show up to pick her up and she wasn't there. So really it had nothing to do with our investigation. It was somebody else. It could have been anybody that picked her up. That's the nature of this investigation. It had nothing to do with the legitimate rideshare in this case, if that makes sense.
If they're posing as that rideshare company,
Right.
certainly there could be a risk to other people that are using that specific company if this
Right.
person is coming out and saying, I'm with, whichever company.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think that an important part of that is you could pose as that rideshare one day and a different rideshare the next day. So if we were to say the name of one specific rideshare company and it happened that this offender then used a different name the next day, it doesn't really offer any level of security or safety by naming it in this situation. The most important thing here is follow the tips that are available when you're conducting a rideshare. And once again, this has nothing to do with the victim in this case. She's not at fault. It has to do with the predatory behavior of this individual, this offender.
So clearly, it's a case that, unmarked tax, marked taxis.
Yes.
It's a completely different situation as a rideshare. This is more likely to happen with these unmarked or much less marked rideshare vehicles. Is that more of a concern that this could be?
Well, there are a lot of things you can do with ride sharing, though, that in the app, if you're utilizing an app within rideshare, you can actually, there's so many options available to you. You can actually track the vehicle that's coming to you. So you get a little map, and on the map, you see the vehicle that you've requested driving to your actual location. So there's yes, it's an unmarked, although it does have a sticker and it does have a specific plate, and you get a picture of the person, the driver that's there to pick you up. So there's a number of safety factors. I feel very comfortable that the safety factors are in place to allow for a safe ride. If people choose to use and look at all those things. And I think that's really important here is that, in our messaging that we talk to the public that, there are a number of safety factors that are built into these apps and into these ride shares, so utilize them for your own safety.
You need help identifying the suspect.
Yes.
What else can you tell us? Lighter skin and distinct accent.
Yes.
What else? What we're leaning toward in terms of ethnicity? Type of accent?
Yeah, all I have is a distinct accent. Obviously, we get this information from our victim, right? So it's the best information that we have available was that there was a distinct accent in the voice. I don't know exactly what that is. In their 30s, 5'10", medium build, dark eyes, very clean cut, and obviously the minivan being described as a 2008 to 2010, which is a very common vehicle, but when you combine all of that on that evening of March 5th, there might be somebody out there in the public that could help us put that together.
How's the victim doing?
I think the victim obviously was, quite upset and traumatized by the incident, and that's something we're working through to support.
How old is she?
I don't have that information. The exact.
Approximately?
Sorry, I just don't have that information available to me right now.
From the CCTV footage that you have, could you tell whether or not there's an L license plate on that vehicle?
I'm not sure exactly what the specifics are. I think if we had additional information at this point, we would release it, but I don't have that information
There's no
available.
partial or anything like that, then it's just, it's on.
That's part of the investigation, but I don't have that information available right now.